My name is Camilla Anderson. For the past 8 years, I've been living two completely different lives. One is the life my family sees, a failure of a daughter, stuck in a dull government job, driving an old car, and living in a small apartment. The kind of person they mention with a disappointed sigh. But there's another life, one they know nothing about. A life where I'm a senior partner at a top investment firm, managing hundreds of millions of dollars and holding a level of wealth they could never even imagine. And the most ironic part? All those years, I was the one quietly paying for their lives. Every bill, every loan, every stroke of luck they thought they had, came from me. But they never knew. And they never truly saw me. Until one day, everything fell apart. If you want to know what happened next, comment 1. To hear the full story, you might just discover something truly meaningful about your own worth. It all started simply. I just couldn't stand by and watch my family struggle. When I was 24, fresh out of graduate school with a master's in financial economics, I landed my first job with a salary I had never even dreamed of. And I knew I could help them. At the time, my dad was barely holding his construction company together after the crisis. My mom was trying to keep her interior design shop afloat, but it was barely making any profit. Our whole family was always stuck in that just getting by phase. So I started quietly supporting them. No one knew. I didn't send money directly. Instead, I set up a small company under a different name, an LLC. From there, funds were transferred every month to cover my parents' mortgage. When their car broke down, a sudden special promotion appeared, letting them upgrade at a low cost. When my younger brother needed money for his MBA, a perfectly timed scholarship from a financial fund came through. Everything was arranged flawlessly. I told myself I was doing the right thing, that helping without needing recognition was the purest form of support. But deep down, I knew it wasn't just kindness. I was creating distance, building a layer of protection, so no one would ever see who I really was. And from that moment on, one question kept growing in my mind. If they ever found out the truth, would they still treat me the same way? The truth is, I wasn't just helping them. I was testing them. Every time I came home in my old car, every time I wore simple clothes, every time I talked about my ordinary job, I was waiting. Waiting for them to ask if I was happy. Waiting for them to care about how I was really doing. But no. The only thing they cared about was how much I fell short compared to everyone else. And that's when I realized there are some things money can't buy. If you've ever felt like your true worth wasn't seen, drop a right now. Over time, the comparisons in my family became clearer and more ruthless. My older sister Jennifer married a successful surgeon. Her life looked like a perfect picture. A big house in an upscale neighborhood, luxury cars, constant international trips posted all over social media. Every time we were together, my mom would pull out her phone and show me those photos like a reminder. This is what success looks like. My younger brother, Miles, after finishing his MBA, the one I had secretly paid for, made a huge leap in his career. When his company went public, he made millions. From that moment on, he changed completely. More confident, but also more arrogant. Family dinners slowly turned into moments where he would teach me about finance, the very world I lived and breathed every single day. And me? I became their comparison point, the child who never made it, the one my father openly called unambitious. Every holiday, every dinner, I sat there, listening as they praised everyone else while subtly tearing me down. No one asked what I thought. No one asked how hard I had tried. In their eyes, I was just a failure. And what hurt the most wasn't their words. It was the fact that I had stayed silent for far too long. But if anyone stepped into my real life, they'd see a completely different story. Every morning, I start my day at 6 a.m., not in some dull office like my family believes, but at Meridian Capital Management, one of the most prestigious investment firms in Washington, D.C. I'm not just another employee. I'm a senior partner, directly managing portfolios worth hundreds of millions of dollars. My annual earnings alone far exceed everything my family calls success. I own multiple properties. I invest in startups. I'm involved in deals where my name never appears in the headlines, but the impact of them is everywhere. I could live a life of pure luxury if I wanted to. Luxury cars, massive homes, first-class flights, all within reach. But I chose not to. The old car I drive has long been paid off. The small apartment I live in is just a short walk from my office. I don't need to prove anything to the world, because my work already does that every single day. There's just one thing I can't do. I can't make my own family see who I really am. As my career kept growing, so did the amount of money I set aside for my family. At first, it was just small amounts to help them get through tough times. But over time, it turned into a complete system, a steady flow of money they had no idea about. When my dad's company was on the verge of bankruptcy in 2019, a mysterious investor stepped in with $250,000 and saved the entire operation. That investor was me. When my mom wanted to expand her design showroom, a grant supporting women-owned businesses covered all the renovation costs, $180,000. Again, it was me. I paid their property taxes. I handled their insurance. When the roof needed repairs, I arranged for a warranty to take care of it. Those family vacations my mom loved to brag about as lucky wins, I was behind every single one of them. Everything was hidden. Perfectly. Over 8 years, I had transferred a total of $847,000 to my family, nearly $1 million. A number they probably wouldn't even believe if they ever found out. But the strange thing is, the more I gave, the more invisible I became in their eyes. They enjoyed a better life. They lived more comfortably. But not once did they question where all that luck came from. And not once did they think of me as part of that change. Family dinners slowly stopped being a place to connect and became a place for comparison. Miles, the younger brother whose entire MBA I had secretly funded, now sat across from me talking about finance like an expert. He explained compound interest, investment strategies, things I had been writing in advanced reports years ago. I just stayed quiet, nodding, smiling, as if it were all new to me. Jennifer was different. She didn't talk much about money, but everything around her said it for her. The big house, the luxury cars, the lavish vacations, and every time my mom mentioned her, it came with a look of pure pride. And me? I was the one sitting there, listening to my father say it plainly. You should learn from your siblings. At least they've actually achieved something. No one knew that. I was the one who had built the foundation for everything they were so proud of. No one knew that the person they looked down on the most was the one keeping everything from falling apart. I had given nearly $1 million. But what I got in return was silence and judgment. If you've ever felt overlooked like Camilla, leave a comment too. At some point, you stop enduring. Not because you're weak, but because you've endured enough. That year, when I turned 31, something inside me shifted. It wasn't quiet disappointment anymore. It wasn't hope that one day they would finally see me. Instead, it was something much clearer. I needed the truth. I started with what I had. Every transfer, every transaction, every form of support over those 8 years. I compiled it all. Every number, every date, every reason. Everything was organized into a clear system, the same way I handled portfolios worth hundreds of millions of dollars. But this time, the subject wasn't the market. It was my own family. I hired a forensic accounting expert, Richard Chen, one of the best in the field. I handed him all the data and said just one thing. I want to know what's really going on. He didn't ask many questions. He simply nodded and got to work. 6 weeks later, he came back with a report hundreds of pages thick. I still remember the look in his eyes when he placed it on the table. It wasn't surprise. It was a warning. And in that moment, I knew whatever I was about to read would change everything. I opened the report, and within the first few pages, my heart nearly stopped. Not because of the numbers, but because the name on them was mine. 4 credit cards had been opened under my identity. Not by me, not my signature, but every detail was accurate. My name, my social security number, my credit history. Total balance $127,000. I kept flipping. A business loan for $142,000 approved based on my near-perfect credit score. The listed borrower? Me. The signature? Mine. But I had never seen those documents in my life. The next page, Jennifer had added my name to her home loan as a cosigner, a $780,000 mortgage. If she defaulted, I would be fully responsible. I set the report down. In total, over $1 million. Not the money I had given them, but the money they had taken from me. Without permission, without warning, without a single explanation. My family, the same people who had always called me a failure, had been quietly using my identity to build their own lives. And in that moment, I understood one thing. This was no longer a family issue. This was a crime. I sat there for hours after finishing the report. There was no more denial, no more hope that this was all just a misunderstanding. Every forged signature, every loan, every number, it was all too clear. They knew exactly what they were doing, and they had been doing it for years. But this time, I wasn't going to stay silent. The next morning, I took action, quickly, decisively, without hesitation. First, I contacted the credit bureaus and froze my entire credit profile. Every account that wasn't opened by me was reported as fraud. I knew it would be a long process, but I had to clear everything. Second, I hired a lawyer. Not just any lawyer, but one who specialized in financial crimes and family disputes. I put down a $50,000 retainer to make sure every option was in my hands. Third, and most important, I moved $15 million of my assets into an irrevocable trust, a place no one, especially my family, could ever touch. No more exposure, no more risk. I was no longer just the victim. I was preparing for a confrontation. One where, this time, I held all the power. And I knew, once it began, there would be no going back. 3 months later, everything seemed normal. Until I walked into Jennifer's daughter's birthday party. It was extravagant. Fake snow, ice sculptures, even a white horse for the kids to ride. One glance was enough for me to know it cost at least $40,000. And a part of me knew exactly where that money had come from. I arrived the same way I always did. In my old car, wearing simple clothes. Jennifer gave me a quick hug, the kind just visible enough for others to see. Then she smiled lightly and said, "You drove yourself? I thought you'd just take an Uber, easier that way." I just smiled back. Inside, everything felt like a perfectly staged performance. Her friends showed off Cartier bracelets, talked about vacations in Bali. My parents stood in the middle of it all, proudly talking about Jennifer's life and Miles's. When my mom saw me, that look appeared again. Not hatred, but embarrassment. Later that night, while helping clean up, I accidentally overheard them talking in the next room. "Camila doesn't do anything for this family." I froze. $847,000, 8 years, and in their eyes, I was still the one who did nothing. In that moment, it didn't hurt anymore. It was clarity. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat alone in my small apartment, staring at my laptop, reopening everything I had gathered over time. Richard's report, my attorney's analysis, every transaction, every transfer, every piece of evidence of what I had given and what they had taken. For the first time, I saw it all as a complete picture. No longer separate actions, no longer isolated acts of help, but a system, one that was chillingly clear. I had spent 8 years staying silent, hoping, waiting for them to change. But they didn't, and maybe they never would. I opened a new file. I started putting everything together, not to vent, not to explain, but to prepare. A complete record, logical, emotionless, just the truth. A story that no one could deny once they read it. At 3 a.m., I finally stopped. I looked at the screen, at the decision in front of me. This was no longer about speaking up or staying quiet. It was about whether I would stand on my own side or keep standing on theirs. And for the first time in years, I chose myself. If you understand what it feels like to choose between your family and yourself, leave a comment too. On Monday morning, I didn't hesitate for even a second. I started at the bank, a list of accounts, automatic transfers, the LLCs I had used to support my family for 8 years, all laid out in front of me. Shut everything down, effective immediately. The account manager looked at me, slightly surprised. "These have been running for a long time." "I know," I replied calmly. "And today, they end." I left the bank and moved through every remaining piece. The shell companies were dissolved, the funding channels were withdrawn, every anonymous support my family had always thought was luck disappeared completely. I removed one last thing too, their safety net for the future. Nearly $1 million I had quietly set aside to make sure they'd be okay in old age. A plan they never even knew existed. I transferred all of it back into my own account. No more exits, no more cushions. Within 14 days, I dismantled the entire system I had built over 8 years. No announcements, no explanations, just one simple truth. From now on, they would have to live their own lives. And for the first time, so would I. It took just 72 hours. for everything to start falling apart. That night, my phone rang. My mom's name lit up on the screen. I stared at it for a few seconds, then answered. Her voice was panicked. Camilla, what's going on? The mortgage payment was reversed. Your father's account, there's nothing in it. Was this you? I leaned back in my chair, my voice calm, almost cold. Yes, it was me. Silence. But why? She asked, her voice breaking. I didn't answer right away. Then I spoke, slowly, clearly. For the past 8 years, I've been paying the mortgage every month. $3,200. That's over $300,000 total. I saved Dad's company with $250,000. Expanded your showroom with $180,000. All the trips, all the expenses, $847,000 in total. On the other end, I couldn't even hear her breathing anymore. That's not possible, she whispered. Why didn't you tell us? Because I wanted to know. If there was no money, would you still see me as your daughter? I paused for a moment. But that's not all. I opened the report in front of me. 4 fraudulent credit cards, a $142,000 loan, a $780,000 mortgage with my name added as a cosigner, over $1 million in fraud. From my own family. There was no silence anymore. Only the truth. Everything didn't collapse all at once, but once it started, nothing could stop it. Within just a few weeks, the solid foundations my family had once been so proud of began to crack. My father's company, the one saved by the money I injected in 2019, no longer had the cash flow to survive. No mysterious investor showed up this time. Debts piled up. Projects stalled. Eventually, he had no choice but to file for bankruptcy. My mom wasn't doing any better. The showroom she once took pride in became a burden. Rent, operating costs, far exceeded what she could actually sustain. Without the quiet funding behind the scenes, she had to scale everything back. Employees left. Customers slowly disappeared. Miles, the one who used to lecture me about finance, suddenly went quiet. When I asked why he wasn't helping our parents, he simply said, I have my own life. A sentence I had been living by for 8 years. Jennifer, on the other hand, fell into a crisis. Financial pressure, mounting loans, a lifestyle she could no longer maintain, it all began to take a toll on her marriage. The perfect photos disappeared. Silence took their place. For the first time in years, they had to face life without me behind the scenes. And for the first time, they understood the cost of their choices. 6 months passed, and everything grew quiet. No more frantic calls, no more panicked messages. For the first time, my life wasn't being pulled back toward my family. I stopped hiding who I was. I replaced my old car, not to prove anything, but because I wanted to. I moved to a better place, not to show off, but because I deserved it. My career kept growing, the numbers kept rising, the deals got bigger. But this time, I no longer felt the need to shrink myself just to make others comfortable. My family tried to reach out again. Letters, apologies, even admissions that they were wrong. And for the first time in my life, I didn't rush to respond. Not because I didn't feel anything, but because I had finally learned to put myself first. Maybe one day I'll forgive them. Maybe one day, we'll talk again. But not today. Today, I choose peace. And if there's one thing I want you to take away from this story, it's this. You don't have to prove your worth to people who never truly saw you. Thank you for staying until the end of this story. With so much content out there, the fact that you chose to listen truly means a lot to me. If this story resonated with you, subscribe to the channel so I have more motivation to share the next ones.